copy, but I just wanted you to, Gus just threw that.
Sure.
Rob's not here. And just throw that together. And then
No, wait, you're up here. You're sure?
Yeah.
Your presentation?
Our people.
I know.
They've done
Yes. Right. Our staff.
Debbie. Debbie Leo. Is this the same?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, the same exact one. And you're going.
Yeah, just keep it, I'll get another copy, but. No, I don't want to put it on the public.
Subscribe to report?
Yeah.
They're pushing it.
Good.
He's always.
By the time we get up there, it will probably be like before they approve the minutes.
Right.
Online.
Exactly. So we have all our spreadsheets done, so we do that. What they're advertising.
You're done though. You have a good meeting?
Oh, thank you. I'm Marcy. Everything's on time.
Saying that you're in a meeting until 12:30, because I don't think you have enough time to write it down.
Mark Dighton. And then I think Ken sitting there.
I gotta go.
I've gotta go too.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's finance, yeah. And do we know if Janet's coming?
How's everything in your part of the school?
Busy. Very busy. And of course, it's budget month. Whenever it's budget month, it's just you all have a board of finance, like a citizen board of finance that goes over your budget.
Yeah, so we have one guy, we have about 4 people. Our budget is
There's the jug up there, and we also
we go by what we had last year. And we actually start from the bottom up.
hard.
The other day, the first meeting, and we broke it out, and we said, all of this is basically the personnel and the insurance and some of, we added in to pay, and that takes up about 92% of the budget.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is stuff that we really had to talk about. So, you can break it
Simple,
out.
yeah.
But you can never break it out
In the market.
for the real department. And
Right.
it's simple, but it's
Yeah, no, I get it. Okay. I think we'll go ahead and get started even though Commissioner Long's not here yet. I'm told she's coming, but... Okay, we'll call our meeting to order. Is there any public comment? Seeing or hearing none, we'll move on to our action items. First item on the agenda is our July 19th, 2015 meeting minutes. Are there any additions or corrections?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Second item is our budget trim notice. Debbie,
Thank you. Good morning.
half of that conversation.
Well, this morning, we're going to, I'm sorry, Brad.
No, I'm just looking, most of you, were here for most of that, so.
It's okay. It's so exciting, we're going to talk about it again. So this time of year, the Finance Group always brings the trim notice to the committee, and this is for the publication of the millage rate. And this year is going to be a little bit different, our discussion. As part of the path forward, the board has directed staff to maximize every revenue source that we can that is available to us. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to be taking a look a little bit at our history of the millage rate, taking a look at what it means if we bring the maximum millage rate to 7.5, and how that impacts taxpayers. And also, the board can make decisions on each of the items we've been discussing, increases, the ad valorem, and what is the impact, and what can we do if we decide not to move forward with the millage, maximizing the millage rate. This is our history of our millage. In 2012, we increased it to the 0.05. Many places take it right to the max when they do this, because it's then discussion item going forward. And you always have the ability to charge for the maximum rate. And over the years, we have actually lost quite a bit of our tax revenue with the impact of the downturn. We've lost $42.5 million since 2007. So even though our property tax revenue is going up, it's still more, what we've lost is more than what our annual property tax budget is. So currently we are at the 0.7305. We are recommending that we go to the 0.75. And if we did that, we would gain a little over $1 million of revenue. And we took a look at what is the median home rate, and what is that person if we increased it. The median home price is $151,500. When you take a look at when you have the homestead exemption in there, that homeowner would be paying $1.98 more for the year by bringing it to the maximum. So what we did is we put together a chart that shows that the different home values, what it would mean. So if you had a $500,000 home, you'd be paying an additional $8.77 next year if we raised it to the maximum millage rate. I would say, based on our discussions at the last meeting, this is not statistically significant. Now, what does it mean for our budget? And we've seen this chart before. If we go ahead and raise the maximum millage, increase the fares, redesign the route, we are sustainable out to 2021. see our green alligator chart. And what happens if we do nothing related to the millage? We start to see significant, in 2021, significant decreases, $6.8 million losses, and we're no longer sustainable up to that point. We now have 2020. And our chart starts turning red.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Mm-hmm.
So does this chart include the fare and route?
It does.
Okay.
This assumes we make all the decisions, and by changing just this one decision, we now start to have losses. So what can we do as an alternative to the millage? Well, cut service more instead of by we can cut it by 6.25%. That would save us $1 million. We could raise fares instead of by the 15% over the we can raise it 30%. And that would save us $1 million. So right now, as we take a look at this, our path forward is to maximize revenues available to us. We also have to take a look at expenses. When we start to go out and talk to new funding partners, I think we would like to say that we have done everything in our power and ability to be able to help ourselves before moving forward and asking others. At your places, we have some talking points as to what are the pros and cons of the millage rate. And any, as we discussed last meeting, if anybody has additional suggestions, we would gladly take it. You know, this is something that once you do, you never have to do it. We can certainly charge less. From an equity, we're right now looking from our other suggestions of raising fares to people who probably have the least ability to handle it. This way, when we look at the whole county and raising the millage, everybody out there is a potential rider. Not visiting them as potential riders. So I think it spreads this to everyone. And the other thing is, if we in our plan we actually have some money for expansion. If things go extremely well over time, and it's hard to predict the future sometimes, we can put more money towards new service, so improving service, improving time. So there's many things that we can do with these funds that will be very beneficial to the community. Does it need to be immediately done? No, probably not. But the decisions you make today will affect the future. Because right now we're sustainable, and that's assuming that the reserves that we have go towards buying new buses. Are there any questions? Comments?
Questions? Comments? Commissioner Welch, you have to have a comment.
I think it's very well presented. I don't want to channel Dave Eggers because I'm sitting in the same chair he but I would just note we are getting a $2.5 million increase even if we stay at the same millage rate. Increase in property tax value. So I think when you talk $1.87 impact or whatever it was, we kind of need to acknowledge that we are getting appreciation just from the tax base increasing. We're basically buying 1 year
We are.
with this.
You've already.
Yes,
No.
I'm not going to.
You got nothing?
This is my second go at it, yeah.
Okay. Bill, anything?
Well, I'm not on the committee here.
Okay.
The one thing that I did write down after is we really haven't known the fare increase relative to AD, and because at the last committee meeting, our fare expected revenue is not coming in associated with that. I hope we'll be able to get through and understand that as we look at the fare.
My comments I worked with Dave for 8 years, and usually him and I are very on point when it comes to tax increases, and I understand what he's looking at, because we went through this in Dunedin where you'd have 6 years out, the world would start. Well, 6 years, a lot can change. And I normally would be right with him on that if I was new to this organization. But I'm not looking at it maybe so far down in the weeds. I'm looking at it more big picture, where what we've just gone through with, we've made statements that we need to shore up the sustainability of our organization, and without additional revenue, we can't do that. That's number one. Number two, we're going out and asking other people to help us do that, trying to create partnerships. It's difficult to go out and create those partnerships if you haven't done everything you can in your own house, so to speak, to bring in revenue. And so, given those two things, and given that it's the first year after Greenlight, I just think we pull the Band-Aid and do all the steps, whether we like them or not, and so that we can present a very thought-through plan to others that we're trying to get funding from, and say, look, we've taken all of these steps, not just some of them, we've taken them all. And I think that presents a better light on our organization to potential community partners that we have. For that reason, I'm supportive of it. I'm not worried about 2021. It's so far away, and the world could be so different than normally I would say no, but I'm just not worried about 2021.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Can you refresh us on the big jump between 2019 and 2020? Is that when we first buses? I mean, we go from, I'm looking at the plan with the property tax increase, I guess. We go from 13.2 million reserves down to 4.3.
Right.
Is that you?
Buses.
That's
Because we have, in the capital program, we've used our own local funding for buses.
And what amount was that? Was that the 8?
It's, our buses are approximately about 8 a year on the sustainable bus plan.
And so if we get MPO dollars or other dollars, the drop won't be that large?
That is correct.
The diesel buses or the capital, or the approved buses with the,
They're the clean diesel buses.
just the plain diesel?
And I think you just said it. And Schreigers, this has, the meeting was ending, but that bottom line, the $12 million, $13 million in reserve, $15 million, et cetera, which he noted, the board's CIP approval assumed that all that number on line 15 there goes to capital. That's because the Pinellas MPO and the Florida DOT said that they'll get any STP money till 2021, and we actually missed the timeline on that, FDOT said, theoretically. So we might not get money, any STP money till 2022. So while it's a year to, if we want to maintain buying buses with the local money, you could say, yes, this ad valorem is a year, but it's also, or you could say it's the buses. The money is going to the buses.
If I make a suggestion, and I think this would help, especially those who aren't looking at this every day, rather than put reserves, if you just break that out into a couple of lines that say, this is our operating reserve, this is our capital money, because, and I know that sounds like an in-the-weeds request, but for someone like a Commissioner Eggers, he sees $15 million that's in reserve, what do we need money for? You know what I'm saying? The impression
So
that
we
it
can
gives.
change the terminology.
I would say so. I would say so. We know that money's going to be used for, there's a place for it. At least say capital, and then show your ending operating reserve. You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point.
I think it would help people, especially newer people, and that those aren't really $15, $16 million in money that's just sitting there. It's there for something. I think that would be helpful,
Okay.
even on a small
Okay.
show that.
And I think at large.
Yeah.
I know when we were looking at our water and sewer rates, we had quite a few folks come, Dr. McCaleb and his group saying, you've got all these dollars in reserves, why are you increasing water and sewer?
Right.
So I can see that same kind of reaction to that kind of number, just labeled reserves.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
And especially for our newer folks.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this item? All right, is there a motion what's the word? Recommend, is there a second?
So we're recommending not forwarding or presenting to the board.
Well, what is it that you're asking for? It's an
Typically,
action
the
item.
committees recommend
I recommend that
to the
we,
board.
that we,
Are you struggling with that?
You can declare.
But, Madam Chairman, this is the preliminary millage recommendation.
Right, it's not the final, it's the trim notice. So the trim notice would go out at 75, and then that can, so we are recommending that the trim notice be this. Does that make it better for you?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So I have a motion. Get a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Informational items, Phase 1 service redesign. Oh, Sandra, you got 30 minutes, girlfriend.
Not all by myself.
Thanks to Cassandra and the planning committee for quick mind to that's awesome. Although it's the new,
We're still working on the unit.
it's called redesign phase 1. Like, well, and their PowerPoint is also there. Or the PowerPoint's in the packet.
Yes, you have a lot of documentation for this particular item. So you have in your package the PowerPoint, the 10-phase plan that we talked about last time, which is working through every route in the system, and then a summary of the public engagement we've done to date. You will quickly have a hot copy of the analysis report, and that is in draft form, so we're still sort of making some adjustments, but the data is there and the data is clear. So the department has done for this of a 10-phase plan, and I have Heather and Bob Lasher helping me because this has been an effort of the entire planning department to make sure that we've covered all the bases. Just to start, you asked for a brief overview of the community bus and how we were making sure that we were using the work done and then validating it with the data that we have today. So in every step, we are going to be talking about the 2013 community bus plan. You already know that that bus plan was extremely comprehensive. It had a lot of onboard surveys for every single route, and the consultant that really dug deeply into our system. We had 3 main goals come out of that plan, which we think we still hold true today. Riders, building that transit constituency, and supporting our community's mobility. Improving transit competitiveness, making sure that it is a viable option, And then building in that financial sustainability. So that means efficiency, performance monitoring, focusing the resources that we have in the places that they work best. Out of the community bus plan came 3 scenarios, and you've seen these before. The optimal scenario, looking at the service that we have, the people that we have to serve, and what would make sense if we did not have a financial constraint. So what would we put out there just in good service? Just good service. The new revenue scenario was based on changing our financial profile. The ad valorem as our local source budget process to a sales tax. And what would we do with that? That was a step down from the optimal, just so you know. And then the no new revenue. We were asked at that time to make sure we had a plan B. What would happen if we didn't get the sales tax and we stayed with our current funding sources? And so this was, again, a lot of analysis, ridership, a lot of public engagement. We talked to tens of thousands of people in this phase of putting together the plan that we talked about in November. And in every scenario, that route structure was redesigned. Now we talked to people, they told us what they wanted in terms of what would make their ride better. They wanted frequency, longer hours, and faster service. We looked at the data and how we best serve our community. We are not a community that travels only at peak times. It is an all-day service, all day long. So we need to take that into consideration when we're designing the route. We know that we do have some core routes, 6 core routes that provide the trips on the system, but we also know that people are transferring to and from those core routes. The average trip length that we have on our system is pretty long. It's greater than, and that's significant in how we provide service as well. The recommendations coming out of the community bus plan were to go to a grid network, increase frequencies, and allow for a streamlined, more direct service. So that, again, that means looking at each individual route and making sure that it's the fastest possible service.
Can I speak?
Yes.
With this trip length of 5 miles, a lot of times we talk about people getting on the bus, off, and taking another bus.
Right.
Is that saying that these people are going just 5 miles and then taking another and going another 10 miles or another 5 miles, or does it mean that
they're traveling a long way on our system?
Okay.
Which means they want a faster trip. So we need to look at maybe the number of stops that we have and what's our best allocation of stops.
It's all buses equals 5 miles.
Right.
All buses?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It's not each bus 5.
Yeah.
It's the system.
The whole thing. Okay. Thank you.
So this you started to talk about a little bit with Debbie, and this is a comparison of the financial assumptions, the 2013 no new revenue community bus plan, and our fiscal budget assumptions that you're talking about right now. In the 2013 bus plan, we didn't look at changing anything but the service. We said the only thing that we can use to balance the budget would be an adjustment to the service. And that's where we looked at if we had to balance the budget, we would 28% cut in service. Now this board has discussed is not the best thing in the interest of our community. And so that's why the staff is looking at all of these other things. We're finding that the answer to every question starts with it depends. Because there are so many variables when you think about transit and providing transit service. And you're feeling that right now as you have all of these conversations. But in this first phase of looking at the service adjustments, if we do all of these other things, just as Debbie talked about her thing, we're looking at 3% cut in the first phase for the entire system. And again, digging in, we can see that that cut, while it's important to the individuals who take those routes, in the system whole, it's going to make us a better system.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How are you measuring that percentage? Is that revenue miles? What are we using?
Yeah, we use revenue miles.
Okay. I guess you'll get to it, but
It's a balanced revenue miles, hours, you know, we look at both.
I'll wait till you get to the actual routes. I have
Yeah.
another question.
So we wanted to make sure that we were looking at each route in the same way, and we're looking at the same data every single time. And so we have this 6 steps that we are going through for each route. The first is that route performance evaluation, which you have seen and you will see again, of looking at just how are routes performing in comparison to each other, and how are they performing in terms of the type of service that they provide. We are looking at the bus plan and then validating that with new information. So again, going out again and talking to those specific routes, onboard surveys, and specific people that are riding those routes. Taking another look at the demographics of the area, and again, making sure that we're validating or changing the recommendations out of the community bus plan if needed. The 4th step is looking at the financial implications of choice, not just in terms of the operating dollars that we would save, but in the revenue that we would forego in the fares collected on those routes. So that is a net cost or a net saving when we look at each route. We have identification alternatives for people who are using these routes. Some are better than others. Some are opportunities that we should look at moving forward, and maybe that means or two, or a new idea that we might change or eliminate a service now, but then have the opportunity to make it better later if we have that partnership. We are engaging the public in every phase of this, and is a very important part of our ultimate recommendation. You saw the 10-phase plan. So this is not a conversation that is ending. This is a conversation starting. This phase 1, and any choices that you make or don't make in phase 1, other things in phase 2. Understanding that phase 1, we've very much focused on the lowest performing routes where PSTA was the funder. So you'll see some other routes in there in the lower performing routes, but we are not the only funder of those, and we need more time to talk to our partners on those routes. We do recommend, and we're going to go through these step by step. Our initial recommendation is to eliminate routes 30, 58, the 444 connector. We would realign Route 18 to serve the St. Pete College Seminole campus that would no longer be served by the 58. And we would recommend redesigning the Route 1 and renaming it to the new Route 22. This works in combination with the Route 30, and you'll see that with the analysis is presented together for the 1 and the 30. So step 1 in looking at numbers of how many passengers are we carrying per revenue hour, and what is our cost recovery before. So the routes we are discussing today, the 5, are at the lower end of this chart. You'll see the 444 at the very bottom with the East Lake connector, followed by the 1, the 30, and the 58 moving up towards a better performing in that order. The technical analysis that Heather will present is a look at the current ridership, the current deficit in the area, and then Bob will talk about what we've heard from riders, what we've heard from the state area, and that could be businesses in the area. We've also presented this to the last night, and we have some public comments that we'll share with you that were given at that meeting last night. We've also received some letters from people, and every time we get a letter, we try to get to that person to talk to them, face-to-face, on the phone, to help solve their problem in the moment. And so we do have some examples of that as well, of how we've gone out and talked to people, found them an alternative for when and if these decisions are made, and how they would continue to make their choice. We also had extensive meetings with bus operators through their union representatives, and we will be taking another opportunity to talk to operators through our public engagement in the next phase. We've also been out talking to a number of other stakeholders. We've been talking to city staff in the area to see if there's opportunities for partnerships and make sure that what we're doing is the best thing that we can do for them as well. So with that, I will turn it over after any questions that you have.
Just a basic question. On the community bus plan, it's identified for exit trolleys.
It was like 28. Yes,
The existing.
The existing plan, our existing service has 40 routes, 30 fixed, and 3 are connectors. So of that 37, is it trolleys?
Yeah, let me reconcile, because I've never been able to reconcile it in my... And slide 8 is the one I'm trying to... Okay, those are 44 if you count them. So the 4 trolleys that we identified in the community bus plan.
There's 40 here that are run by PSTA. There are 4 that are operated by private service providers. So that is the Jolly Trolley. We have our own trolley routes, and then there are the Jolly Trolley routes. So there are 3 Jolly Trolley routes.
So that's right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So 40,
40 PSTA routes.
Right.
3 Jolly Trolley routes, plus, and then the looper. So there's your 44.
So the 4 Jolly Trolleys in that chart
Right.
are...
Have partners.
The Safety Harbor, the North Coastal,
Okay.
and the Beach Route.
My site is not what it used to be. So those are the ones that say JT in front of it, right?
yeah.
So what's JT safety coastal JT?
That's the one that goes to Johnson.
Yeah, and that's only weekend service.
And what are the other 2 Jolly Trolleys?
The Jolly Trolley Beach, and then which is the downtown St. Petersburg partnership.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm looking for the ones that say JT on the front of it.
That's
And I
the
see
Jolly
2.
Trolley, yes, those are the Jolly
That looks
Trolleys.
like an eye.
Where's the third one?
It's all the way to the left.
Wow. Oh, Palm Harbor, Dunedin.
That's the connector.
No, that's a connector. Coastal. Got it.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay. Trolley service, so.
Yeah.
Sorry for the
community bus
confusion.
plan back then.
I was always trying to
Listed different.
reconcile it back to that chart we had in the community bus plan that said 40 routes, 4 trolleys. So that helps me.
Okay.
I'll start with the routes 1 and 40. We just went in numerical order. The routes 1 and 30 are the 4th lowest performing route and the 6th lowest performing route, respectively. The community bus recommended that we eliminate Route 30 and that we read 1 to remove this intermittent service going up to Gateway Mall. In looking at the text data, we looked specifically at demographic data that tends to indicate people may be more transit dependent. So we looked at poverty level, income, number of vehicles, zero vehicle households specifically. And then we also conducted a new onboard survey in June. Because these routes, we did have a limited number of surveys completed at the 2012 bus plan survey. Transfer activity, what people would do if the route was not available, and those kind of things. For the route, we found that we're not serving any large areas of transit-dependent populations. 3/4 mile of the route. We to 3/4 mile of the entire PSTA system, and also the Pinellas County. We did find, though, that there are big concentrations, specifically of lower income populations on the eastern portion of the Route 1 corridor, so on 22nd Avenue North and 30th Avenue. In terms of transfer activities, there is a high rate of transfer activity. Most of the stops that had higher ridership were at where they intersect with high-frequency north-south routes, indicating that people are using these routes to transfer to other services that take them to their final destination. Thermal, they transfer to a lot of routes as well. We also looked at those intersecting north-south routes and the bus stop activity in this area, and found that there's a lot of ridership. For example, the Route 4, for the Route 19, in this area, telling us that there are people that are already today walking to get that 15 to 20-minute service offered. And then also those, of course, have weekend service. Between those transfer areas, in 10 of the route, there were between 0 and 2 on total for all the bus stops. And what this tells us, this kind of feeds into the recommendation to continue to have service on 22nd Avenue North, which we've defined as a new Route 22. So we can continue to serve kind of that higher poverty area on the eastern portion of the corridor and still provide those transfers to other routes. By discontinuing 1 and 30, we would save approximately $121,000 in net annual operating costs, and then about $500,000 in bus capital, equivalent to one bus. And then on the other side, we could see a potential increase in DART. Although DART still serves the area, so we wouldn't expect that to be too great. People that need DART are probably already using.
Question?
Yes.
When we move a route, we take it off. Does the DART ridership still count an hour and a half or on that route, or do you put the DART ridership on another route, or how does it change?
Well, DART ridership is within 3/4 mile, or DART service is available to people living within 3/4 mile of the fixed route system.
So if we a route system, then these people that are 3/4 of a mile from there, they don't qualify for DART anymore.
But in the case of all of these recommendations, there are other routes within 3/4 mile, so no DART riders would be affected by any of these recommendations.
Thank you.
As promised, we looked for transportation alternatives for people who may be negatively affected by discontinuation of a service or a segment of a route. And for the route, particularly the Route 30, by offering this new Route 22 on 22nd Avenue North, people that are riding Route 30 today can walk with it's about a half a mile to the 22nd Avenue North. And then also there's the Route 38, which is about a half a mile to the north, and that's also an east-west route. People can also transfer to our high-frequency north-south routes that run along all listed here. And then as part of our onboard survey, we asked what people would do if this route were not available. And for the routes 1 and 30, it was over 75% of the rider surveyed said that they would take the trip, and they would do so either by one of the other bus routes or by carpool, driving, taxi, And when we met with the city, there's an interesting one on here, golf cart, because there were some communities that particularly along Route 1, that allow golf carts, and people already utilize them to make some of their shorter trips. One other thing I didn't mention is we are recommending with this new Route 22 that there would not be service on First Street North. Something we found is there's currently very little ridership along First Street North because it's only a few blocks from Route 4. The majority of people are likely just walking to the Route 4 and taking that really frequent service.
For the 71% of the people, are they saying they would walk, or they say that they take a carpool taxi bike? How would they get there?
Any of those. So, in this packet that's handed out, and, you'll have time to look at that, obviously, between now and your next meetings, it breaks it out by each of those modes.
Okay.
So, I think the majority were walking, and likely because it's higher frequency routes. But then, there's a small portion, for example, bike, or a small portion, but that total was over 75%, combining all those.
Okay. Somebody taking a taxi, letter from somebody the other day saying, I gotta take a taxi here, I gotta do this. For somebody who would just walk, it's a whole lot different.
And I always remember that back in high school, the one lap around the track was a quarter mile. So, around the track is what we're asking folks to walk.
In
You
a
did
lot
it
of
twice
cases,
and it nearly killed me.
in a lot of cases, it's actually half a mile, so, or less.
Or twice.
Yeah.
So do you have the actual number of riders, say, for Route 1? You said the number that were at stops.
The ridership analysis, we looked at ons and offs at each bus stop along the route. And that's also in your packet.
Well, it says, for example, 0 to 2 riders at most bus stops along the route.
Right. That was ridership, so ons and offs. We looked at the total number of people getting on or off at those bus stops.
Can you condense it down just to how many folks will be impacted, how many riders?
Last night, I looked up the average daily ride to the routes we're proposing to eliminate. So I didn't look up Route 30, and the total average daily for, I think I looked up June. No, I looked up May, was 62 a day. Trips, not that, so that's the same number as Heather's citing per stop. Total number of ons and, going-ins and coming. 62, 58 is 172, the 444 is 45, that's 26. Each of these is, as Sandra showed, our lowest ridership. I looked up what our median route of the 44 routes. But our median bus route of all those routes is 700 a day. 700. These are down in the 60s and 50s. They're low.
So if you divide it by 2, it's...
Yeah.
And 30, you've got to walk up to 22nd Avenue.
Or 30.
Or 38.
Says 8 blocks.
Did we get any coordination, Madam Chair,
Oh, please.
with Uber and Lyft as part of these alternatives?
We did not speak with them directly as part of these alternatives, or at least, to my knowledge, the planning staff didn't, but we did include that in some of the taxi/rideshare.
But we have, through our IT department, talking about how we make sure that we are integrating with Uber and other types of rideshare services. So we have that, but it's being in another department.
Okay. You've got the alternatives for each stop in here.
For each route.
For each route, what
Yeah.
folks will do
Right.
to get to them.
And for someone, if someone can perhaps walk the half mile to go to 38th or 22nd, another option is to walk a shorter distance perhaps to one of those, to the Route 19 or the Route 4, and that to get up to the next quarter and transfer if they need to go east and west.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions on this analysis? If not, we'll hand it over to Bob, and he'll talk about the public outreach that's been conducted on, for the routes 1 and 30.
And also in your packet is a breakdown of what we've done so far and what actually has changed since it went out, because this is ongoing for every day. And it will increase. One of the things, since you were talking about it before, we looked at right away was to identify groups, organizations along the lines where we have the higher ridership, where we go in and just talk to people, let them know this is what's being considered. We want to let you know. So far, for this route, Pete, when we met with the city, asked to do the outreach. So they are going out to the neighborhood associations, the neighborhoods along the line. And once the decision's made, I'm going to be starting to talk to some of the larger, say, the malls, shopping centers. There's some churches and schools along the way as well, and letting them know as far as what the options are and what the changes are, because this route is not being retooled a little bit, so most of them will have the best option. This is still ongoing. As I say, you've got a list in here. It grows when we go out, when we meet with someone, and then we'll ask them, anybody else we can talk to, yes, or that. And it's ongoing, but right now we're getting some great help from St. Pete this week as well.
Okay. So just to summarize, to discontinue Route 1, or Route 30, and redesign Route 1, i.e. the new Route 22, serving 22nd Avenue North from Tyrone Square Mall to 4th Street. It's just listed here. We have a series of public workshops. We have at locations other than PSTA, and then one at PSTA as well as public hearings. So for each of these slides, we just listed the ones that are nearest to people. For the next route, we'll 58. This is the 8th lowest performing route in the system. The community bus plant in has recommended that this route be discontinued, and that is our recommendation. Along this corridor, we don't serve a lot of these transit-dependent populations. A couple smaller concentrations near the Starkey Road and over on the eastern portion. In terms of ridership, again, this route is used for transferring to other routes a lot, with the most ridership at those transfer points, Route 79 and Route 19 in particular. Along Bryan Dairy Road, the portion that is not served by another route, is between 0 and daily ridership at the stop. The portion of the route is served by Route 52, 59, 97, and 98, so people can actually take any of those routes to travel that portion. 59 travels the whole eastern portion. On the western side, St. Pete College Seminole campus has about 31 bus stop ridership on an average weekday, and then there's a nearby 11.
When you say 31, is that 31 boardings?
On and off total.
It's a combination of on and off.
Yes. We looked for this because we didn't want to leave out any location that people may be just getting off at. They may be, getting on at a different location and getting off somewhere. By discontinuing the Route 58, we save $242,000 in net annual operating costs and $1,000 for one bus.
Can I ask a question on the operating costs? Does that include any drivers, or is it just fuel maintenance site?
We used our rate, our allocated rate of $71.95 per revenue hour, which includes fuel, city finance can just, I don't want to.
It does include wages, so and yes, these in aggregate reduce the total number of needed bus drivers, but no employee will be affected.
You're going to handle it by attrition, or?
Yeah.
But positions will be going away.
The net positions in next year's budget goes from 3,
Goes down by, the drivers, But we have so many vacant positions. We have
Right.
such a hard time filling them, it doesn't affect
So it's
people.
positions, not
Right.
actual people.
Like 380 to 370.
Okay.
Those numbers also include ridership. So we did look at our ridership and our fare box, and that includes that.
It's net of we're assuming we'll lose riders, and the fare box will lose fares.
Are we double counting the buses? Is this an additional bus that would be saved in addition to the route we just looked at before, Route 1?
Yes,
Yeah.
this is by route. So the route is one bus. So we would not need to obviously replace that bus.
And all of those, for both the operating side and the capital side, is incorporated into Debbie's budget. And so any deviation from this affects two parts of her budget, both the bus replacement and operation.
I have a question. In the previous one on 1 and 30, we figure the discontinuing the routes 130, you save 121, and we would save one bus. And on here, we're going to save 242, and we're going to save one bus. And I'm just wondering, what's the difference between the 141 and the 242? Is that the number of people plus the fares?
The 1 and 30, really we're just saving the operating costs for Route 30, because for the new 22, we put those revenue hours from the Route 1 to make that service.
Okay.
So it's just less hours total, so it's lower cost.
What was the original justification of these routes? Did we anticipate that we'd have higher riders run out, or were we trying to cover county geographically?
It could have been your grandmother's, somebody's grandmother lived on the line and we added it.
Route,
I'm teasing, but I say that.
None of our grandmothers, for the record.
No, none of our grandmothers.
There's been 30th Avenue North in St. Petersburg probably for decades. And I don't know how long the Bryan Dairy Road service has been on. Obviously, that's there was probably a combination of both the things you said about throughout the county and on major corridors. But these two routes especially have been low performing for a long time, and previous boards of the PSDA have cut these back. Information just does not be enough. They don't run every hour, and they don't run on weekends, and they run,
30 doesn't even run every hour.
maybe not even every hour.
3 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon.
They have been cut back far to really even be viable.
58 has, I believe, 5 trips, and it's no midday service. Midday service was eliminated in 2008 with those service cuts. The route was serving, well, it still is. It serves some call centers, kind of towards the middle of the route, and just anecdotally from our drivers, they said that they believe during the recession, some of those, we had less and less ridership on those locations, and then a lot of the other portions of the quarter have almost no ridership. So.
I would add, though, on the 30 specifically, that was one that we targeted a few years back, and we had meeting and just begged the board not to cut it because that was their way to get to work. So that's why we ended up with kind of a morning and afternoon, no midday service to 30. You business, I think, on this route, tech business that was concerned, was that on this route?
Think direct marketing.
Yeah,
They operate a large call center, and they indicated there's another call center coming to the area soon. And some of the employees, we actually were out there during the previous public engagement for Greenlight Pinellas, and I personally was there, and we talked to a lot of the employees, and a number of them did use the bus to get, but because the Route 58 didn't run late enough, those who started their shifts at 3 couldn't take it home, but they did use it to get to work and indicated they carpooled or carpool to get home with the main baseball route.
So what's the alternative for them?
To walk to the nearest route and
still within the 3/4 mile?
It is.
There's not
Okay.
pedestrian facilities built on Bryan Dairy Road.
Right.
Yeah, there are.
But I think is it the 62, is the closest north-south route?
Yeah, I think they're 600 feet from 62 and 3,000 of direction.
And the 62 doesn't run any later than...
I love your precision, Mr. Lasher. I wasn't good at conversion, though. Is that all?
First time I've gotten that question.
It's about a half a mile.
About a half
50 to 80
mile,
is a
okay.
mile.
I was curious.
Okay.
And then you
Okay.
go up and perhaps transfer to the 59 on Elmerton Road if you were traveling east-west.
With everybody getting those bits, we should continue these steps.
You know,
More steps.
Yeah.
I think, Councilwoman Bright, made a good point, though. In going forward, when we're looking at these things, as using the same layout for each one, so that it's consistent, we're getting the same information, which is wonderful. I think a piece that needs to be included, and even though I was making fun of her question, I agree with the question. I think it would be helpful to understand what the history of it is. For instance, Commissioner Welsh just mentioned what we did with 30, right until he said it. But understanding the history of the route, why it was there, what did, or it was there and it worked for a while, but businesses moved out of the area, some type of history, because some of us don't have that institutional knowledge, and maybe you all don't either. But I think if going forward on these things, and even maybe when you present this to the board, I think it would be helpful. I'm not talking about some 5 paragraphs, a couple of bullet points of what you can access would be helpful to paint the complete picture.
Thank you. We can look at the data and obviously look at what are the routes that are low performing, but it's helpful to know and ask why they're low performing. People who are affected will ask us, why is our route on this list?
Right. And knowing that, I think it's important. Why was it added? If we don't know that, what changes have been made, or what's the physical climate on the route that's changed, whatever it is. I think those are important things to be able to communicate and able to make a decision. Mr. Welsh has a terrible time cutting service. He is, ever since being on PSTA board. So, not that we all haven't either. I mean, we all do. So having that information, I think, is important.
Okay. We did review the 2008, that was the last one, their major service modifications. So we did review those. We'll try to get a little more history on the origins of some of these.
I think it would be helpful. I mean, certainly don't spend hours and hours, but...
And we had a little bit of this conversation before, where if you have a good service, you're going to get better ridership.
Right.
So all of these routes have historically not been great in terms of gathering riders, and then they get nicked and cut as budget constraints. And so then it becomes worse service and then worse ridership. And so exactly what we're hoping to fix in the new Route 20. The service on 22nd will now be better. We've taken some of it off 30, but we've made a better service overall, and service is still available. There's still coverage within a half a mile. And so it's the balance. Of
right, and I think
finding that
that's
balance.
really an important thing for to embrace and be able to speak to, that we're not just cutting what the data shows, that we're looking at the area, the neighborhood, if you will.
That's why I was so insistent that this report be done and passed out, because this site, looking at the demographics, because as Commissioner Rice has said, the reason these routes are on the chopping block is because there's so little service on them. They're not enough. So you have to ask the question,
What could
is that
you do?
area, if we added better service, if we had a real route on, would it perform? And that's why you have to look at the demographics, look at the problem.
Holistically.
Yeah.
Well, I would just add to that is, if we had, if Brad came to the department and said, I have $1 million for you to put new service out on the road, where are you gonna put it? Would we put it here? That's the question that we talk about a lot of times. If we would probably look at the routes that are overcrowded first. So, we're looking at it
Right.
both ways, and, you
All
know,
the way around.
we need to keep that in mind. We are isolating these routes in the discussion, but the system.
And I'm very proud of that we're looking at it holistically. It's easy. And we're just sort of, this I think will be sort of our experimental year, if you will, to what information do we need to make these decisions? How confident can we be? How will public, you know, if the public comes out in droves as well, have we done everything we can do to make that adding service somewhere else for them or to find alternatives? This is the year to find out, are we doing it right? And kind of, I mean, it's never going to, at least the process, we're going to experiment with it this year and see if it really works.
Yeah. Based on the packed house we had last night, the track, I'm like, we have 9 more of these to go.
So talk about that. The track was packed? Was it from the public?
These chairs, yeah, Crystal Lakes Manor, you know.
I'll talk about
She's
it.
gonna get on the whole
Okay,
board.
sorry, don't mean to
They
take
came
us
out.
off task.
Can I ask one more question? Well,
Yes.
there's a city rec center on. Does the city have any, or the neighborhood have any comments related to folks getting to that rec center?
We had a large room of city staff, actually, with transportation, economic development, and neighborhood services staff there. Were that, if we had to make these changes and eliminate one of these routes, that it would be better to maintain service on 22nd. They didn't specifically talk about the rec center. I believe there's a park on 22nd as well. Is there not? I thought there was. But
Way outside.
President Lake.
the thought was that there's more of a mix of land uses on 22nd, where the home improvement store is and some other things, plus residential areas. And then also it's more of a higher speed road, so maybe more appropriate for the bus to run on versus 30th.
Well, I get that part. I'm just wondering if there's any unintended consequences of getting kids, in particular, to that rec center, particularly in the summer.
We'll check on that.
I'll check. I think it's Flat Park Rec Center.
Yeah.
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 Well, and again, if it's, maybe there's some alternative that we could work out with the city, that they provide their own shuttles, they've got programs, or maybe we subsidize that, or...
The sign on the front of that always says senior citizen ballroom dancing. But, I don't know, maybe they...
But you know what I'm saying?
They
I
have
mean...
they have a mix of events there.
Okay.
Commissioner, I believe there is a route running very close to Glass Park, which is why it's listed on the handouts pending. We're trying to get to the ones that we can really lose service immediately, because I want to be back with them with the new schedule before I go out. And I think they have alternate service right by there as it is.
Either 22nd or 38th.
Yeah.
In terms of the neighborhoods, there's one really large neighborhood association, Visiting Heights, in the area, and then a few others. The neighborhood services director asked that she initiate contact with the neighborhoods. Yes, Susie. So I haven't heard back from whether she's done that or not, so we'll follow up.
Sure.
I'm a data person, like the gentleman across the table from me. For instance, on the Route 58, the average weekday total ride stop, in the Seminole Mall area, or whatever that is on the lower left-hand corner, there's a couple of stops with 239 and 105 passengers.
Those stops are shared with the Route 18, and so we are working on a way to separate out the data, but didn't have it at the time of this
Okay.
printing. So, yeah, it's same with like shops at Parks, aggregated ridership at the stop for all routes.
So
Most
if
of that's
you,
from the Route 18.
so if you look at the 31 going to St. Pete, maybe not Route 58, but somebody else too.
Route 58 is the only one that serves it right now.
Oh,
So our proposal is to,
I like
it's on the next slide, to realign the Route 18 and turn it at 102nd Avenue North, and then come back to Seminole Boulevard via 86th Avenue North, so that we can serve St. Pete College with the Route 18. And Bob did talk to them too. I won't steal his thunder on that one.
So you are, it's so hard to see this little map when you get bigger on the iPad, it gets blurry. So you're readjusting, and what's happening to the Seminole Mall redevelopment? What is that? It's
being
going to be
redeveloped.
another mall, or is it going to be
Yeah.
condos and apartments?
No, it's going to be another mall with big box type stores and out parcels.
Okay, like a town center type
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah,
like
but they're
Largo
developers.
Mall, similar to that. So,
Yeah.
is Seminole Mall still going to be served? Because I see Seminole Mall here, and thank you, Phil,
Yeah.
for bringing that up. Because you want to say, are we considering that we know for sure is coming?
Seminole Mall will continue by Route 18.
Yeah, still can't see.
Yeah.
Even with my glasses.
That's
Seminole
why
Mall
I-
is served by Route 18. We continue to be served by Route 18. We met actually with City of Seminole staff and the developers of that mall site. They actually wanted us to remove the bus stop that's served by the 58. So
Okay.
they're not very concerned about the 58, but the Route 18 provide a lot of trips to Seminole Mall, and that's a service that's running every 20 minutes, 7 days a week. It's running, well, not 20 minutes on the weekends, but it runs 7 days a week.
Okay. Well, that's, and we are looking at, I would also, and maybe I'm asking for too much information, but again, this is our first time going through this, I would also suggest, if everybody else agrees, that in something like this, when we designating a route that, like the question I just asked, everybody in the world, I live in Dunedin, I even know that's being redeveloped. It's been going on for a long time. I think it would be helpful to point out, we have considered a large development project on this route, and it is being served by. Just pointing that out. Thank you.
Okay. So, transportation alternatives, we've already talked a little bit about this, and just have listed here all the north-south frequent 7-day-a-week services that people who do have access to. For that east-west movement, they would have to take those routes up to, say, Ulmerton or south to the next southern route, to transfer west. But if their final destination, again, this route had already had high transfer activity, so people's final destinations are, in a lot of cases, not along the corridor. Now the part that's diverted, that's about a mile, so within a half mile of the midpoint in either direction, people will still have access to the Route 18 bus stops. And as part of actually another initiative we have with the bus stop shelter deployment, we would put out some newer shelters there and improve that wait experience on Seminole Boulevard. And then in the survey, over 60% of people, riders surveyed on this route said they would still take their trip and that they would use carpool, taxi, walking, or biking. And in terms of DART, again, that's still available. Bob will go over the public engagement for this route.
And a few other things, being that I'm the old guy here, is here in 2008, this was Target, and we had SPC come in, and a few members came in, and we held it, and we did go through and search if we needed every single one on the route, and at the time, for quite a few of them, 5 passengers per run. Now, on our outreach here, referring to Seminole Mall, there's a senior living center there, Freedom Village, and we went out and talked with them, we talked with them right around the corner. None of them really expressed last night, I think it was your director was.
Yeah, we had two directors last night, recruiting and sales on the floor.
Okay, yeah, but, and she mentioned when I spoke with her earlier, that a lot of their, I think Heather mentioned, she said a lot of their employees take it, and probably constitute about 20 current employees, and in that same complex, under construction now, apparently is another call center. Thank you.
Yep.
Baker's Medical is scheduled to open as well. So those are the two, and that's also why I was looking up.
And what's the general location of that?
That's the one that's about half to 3/4 of a mile from the two north-south routes.
Well, give me an intersection.
Belcher and Spoke.
Is that the old Eckerd?
Yes, at the old Eckerd Pharmacy.
Old Eckerd complex.
Okay. Not too far from the Star Center.
Which will,
Right.
like,
Star
will be
Center.
redeveloped.
The county
Yeah,
Star
we're west
Center.
of the
Star
Yeah,
Center.
Rainey Star Center.
But
Okay.
it's west of the Star Center.
Right.
The other outreach is the railroad tracks.
We did use multi-unit areas, long secures, and some of the others right in this area. This is Roseville going south, and most of them said the same thing. It's not a big deal to them. First of all, they don't use dart service for anyone either because it's a short walk to the 4, which has much better service, service much later at night. So the outreach that we worked with, we reached out to, of course, the provost at SPC, and I didn't want to get them too excited yet. I'm just saying, this is what we're looking at. But the change of that Route 18 is really big. The city manager, director in Seminole were really excited about it too, because that 18 diverted over right by their library, their post office, the rec center, SPC, it'll give them 20-minute service, and finally, first time ever, nights the kids can get home after taking evening classes. It also goes by large multi-unit living areas that could be most likely be very big trip generators. And I can tell you that the last few days we have been going through one little portion along Seminole Boulevard where we'll be rerouting, and we've been talking to some of the businesses there. We really have negative feedback, and interestingly enough, Monday, the manager at Napa Auto Parts, he said, well, I always hate to see service go away, but then he asked, very thankfully, he asked, what's happening with service? And was explained to him that he goes, oh, well, you're going to get a whole lot more ridership there, so that's where it should go. We're looking, this is kind of bittersweet in this change, but the groups out there that I'm looking forward to going out talking to, SBC and some of the others, telling, hey, for the first time ever, you're going to be getting some really great service from the best of the entire system. It's going to be very impactful, and so far everything I've heard from the city is very encouraging. So that's where we are as far as this goes, and one thing we're looking at, of course, people want to know, Darcy, yes it is. And we have one gentleman we've also worked with too, he was concerned, and we're working with the county as well, for a price. He didn't want to see the 58 go away, but if we can get approved at 102nd and 113, he's going to get much better service. And it'll be pretty much equal distance.
You all got that letter from him?
Yeah.
Yes. He sent it to the piece of paperwork.
Show them that's what happens when your green light's canceled.
When you're talking to these people, are you also talking about providing information on backs, for instance, like the Think Direct, their van pool
Yes,
services?
we talked about T-Bardos last night, we talked about that where they could either provide a van for folks to get from our route to their facility with T-Barda for a subsidized van option, especially when you have getting on one place and getting off at one place, it makes a lot of sense to do something.
And I think this brought
They're
earlier,
8-passenger.
I have been trying to work with Uber and Lyft. They're not user-friendly in that regard. But a gentleman here last night said for short trips, I think he said under a quarter of a mile, it's $1 or $2 for an Uber to go back and forth. They don't like talking on the phone. I can't get anyone to talk, kind of emails back and forth. The concern being, though, that I was looking at and trying to see if we could set something up is for seniors not be web savvy. That's the one I would like to work with them to develop some way, maybe a manager or side so that people don't have to do it themselves if they're not technologically up to date, so to
big problem. I'm just gonna point out real quick that it's 5 till 12, and we've routes to go through. Is everybody okay on time?
Good.
Yes? I mean, I'm okay, I just wanna make sure everybody else is. Okay.
Okay, well, moving on to Route 444. This is our lowest performing route in the system. And looking at this route in configuration, it's not a huge surprise why, as in addition to having some cuts from 8, it's a route that runs one way. It makes one full trip around the route. You stop at Sharp 3 times and Walmart twice. So, you know, it has a kind of a circuitous nature to it. It has this inner over to the St. Pete Housing Authority, and corner. Not really sure what's there. The bus plan recommended discontinuing this route. It did include, in the new revenue scenario, the bus plan did include a service, an undefined circulator service.
Like a
but again, that was
connector.
in the new revenue scenario.
Why is it like 444 numbers is a designation for something? What is that?
Circulator, I think we just,
Like a
that's our
circulator number?
And actually, Bob Ray of City of Pinellas Park staff, and, you know, he is like 30 years old or something, and he remembers when it was put in, and I think he said it was an elected official named Sandra Cohen. Is that ringing any bells? And anyway, that was something that she, I guess, had pushed for many, many, many years ago. And then again in 2008, it
Just was not successful.
yeah, and it's been changed a few times over the years. Ridership, that's how I think some of those extra put in was, oh, maybe if we, you know, serve that place, we'll pick up some more riders, that kind of thing.
Well, and that just pushes us to do when we start new service and we evaluate every many years to see how it's working and to prove our worth to our partners that we're co-funding it with.
Yeah.
It's the same for something like this. Every so often, whatever that number is, to understand the dynamics of the environment and how things have changed, and it should change.
Yes, agreed, and that's, you know, why we set up that system evaluation process, so that we do, on a regular basis, look
Right.
at our system performance and our individual routes.
Okay.
Along this corridor, there's some areas near Park Street and that are higher in poverty than the county average and the PSDA system-wide average within that 3/4 mile area around the route. Moderate levels of zero vehicle ownership, particularly in some areas that are served by some of the over 65 population. Primary use for this route, shopping. The most ridership is at Crystal Lakes Manor area in the southern portion, and of interest is part of the community redevelopment area. And then at Walmart, that has the other highest ridership stop. The rest of the route has between 0 and 2 on and off the total, so maybe one person at 0 to 1 person at each stop. In the mainlands, I know we've talked about that a little bit before. We have, it looks to be maybe 2 riders in that area, and they are near the entrance, so within a walking distance of Route 19. I was going to now, but we, in the survey, when we asked people what, if they had another, or what other alternative they would use if this route were not available, 100% of riders surveyed said they had another alternative, which was interesting. Walking was the highest one. They could take another route, and in some cases, like in the mainlands area, there are people that use golf carts there.
How many riders are we talking about? Do you remember?
That survey, how many riders or surveys?
Right.
The riders,
In that 100% response?
No, in the 100% response.
Yeah.
There was only surveyed, but
Okay.
we had someone out there for every run, and there just weren't that many people riding to survey it. However, last night at the track, we did have a group come who are residents in Crystal Lake Manor, and they did indicate that they don't feel that themselves or some of their neighbors would have another option, and then that the half-mile walk out to US 19 would be difficult for them. So
Crystal
although
Lake Center is a low-income,
over 65, over 55 plus.
over 55 plus on 62nd Avenue North.
It's a
Pinellas
Pinellas
County.
housing.
Pinellas County subsidized housing, I believe.
Well, and they have the highest count
0.5
on their
miles to US
origin.
19 walk.
It appears they
On
have
their
about
trip.
33 people a day using the route,
Yeah,
according to data. About 66 ons and offs total, so
So what's her
assuming no.
Well, Patricia was really concerned
That
about that area, wasn't she?
I think she
She
was most
was.
concerned about mainland,
Yeah, that too.
but mainland is within Pinellas, City of Pinellas Park. Crystal Lake Center is within the jurisdiction of Pinellas County.
So what are their alternatives?
Well,
One of the things we talked about, I think, was some sort
I'll
of
skip
a...
ahead. Their alternatives, we'll just kind of, I'll go out of
Yeah.
order a little bit, but their alternatives are to use Route 19. It's about a half-mile walk, and, you know, there's also no sidewalks along that roadway. We talked with county staff. I guess it's been on the list for a long time for sidewalks, but it hasn't been, you know, the list is long, and it just, you know, through the MPO prioritization of transportation alternatives and other projects to fund the sidewalk project.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Do we have any other projects like that where pedestrian improvement plan but not in place?
On the Route 58,
Is it all county?
that was a,
Okay, can you get us a list in an email, just bullet that, because to me that's a reason to move it up.
Yeah,
If they're not
especially,
gonna service, at least you give a safe place to walk.
in the Route 58, that one is actually going to be done soon. It's the intersection of 122nd Avenue North and, Crystal there?
102nd and 113th. That's a Vietnam veteran that had emailed all of you.
Mhm.
I went out there and spoke with him about it.
So is there,
The county's gonna do some,
Very soon. That improvement is going to be done soon.
no, but that's good to get a list, and I would say for all of our communities, because as elected officials, we can go then follow up either at MPO or with our own, within our own budgets if it's, hey.
so what's for Crystal Lakes? I mean, is it, there's no sidewalk, so what's their path to get to 19?
On the roadway.
Well,
the one public speaker that had her, she said she already does it.
Two ladies that said they walk. One walks because she uses 19 to go to work, and it's much more frequent than the 444. You know, she needs to use it, not the 444.
I'll take a look at visualizing where they're walking.
Yeah, it's a fairly narrow road, and there's deep ditches.
Yes,
Right.
So
it
I
is
don't
ditches.
remember where the sidewalks were.
There
There's
are
That's the
a,
problem on 62nd,
There are
there
none.
aren't. Yeah,
No
just
sidewalks.
ditches.
no sidewalks.
It's like
So
a
how does
rural
she walk to
cross-section, I think.
19?
Along the road. Along the road.
That's-
So it's 62nd here, and then our bus makes a loop in here, and I think there's 4 stops that serve Crystal Lake Manor, that area.
The loop is actually within the Crystal Lakes Manor
Housing complex.
There's several
complex.
apartment complexes there, Heatherwood, and Rose.
And the Heatherwood Apartments is actually just gone and been replaced by a assisted living facility,
Oh, okay.
which actually has a bus for their residents,
Their own bus.
their own bus, pulled up behind it.
Yeah, most of the assisted living, the larger ones have their own vehicles. Well, I'll get more into the alternatives, in just a minute, but just for your reference, this could take approximately $145,000 in net annual operating costs, and smaller bus on this route, so save about $491,000.
When you say a smaller bus, one of the old 30s? or
29,
The,
it's old.
not the Connect.
So, let me let Bob,
Hang on just a
wait, no,
second.
I forgot.
One more question.
Yeah. We were just talking about the bus places have, can they be somehow organized so that they run up every 2 hours or some, help their associate, or their residents? Can they?
I don't know organizing them, but my understanding is that they, depending on the location, they have like a schedule. Like, you know, every Friday they go to Walmart at or, whatever their schedule is. There's some nonprofit transportation alternative slide, Neighborly Care Network, for example, that we know, we contacted them, they take 2 trips a month from St. Giles Manor to Walmart for a shopping trip, and it's a group trip. So there are also some nonprofits that are doing that. In addition to what's available at the facility, but it's scheduled. It's not, you can't just, today I feel like going to Walmart, I'm going to go. And a lot of those places will medical appointments if you reserve in advance a trip to a medical appointment.
I'm just wondering if they couldn't be organized. So that,
We've talked about that before.
yeah.
We have.
I think they're so individualistic. That doesn't mean it can't, what I'm going to
That
say
they
doesn't
could
mean
do
they
it
can't be
themselves,
done. Yeah, it's just, they're very individualistic.
So they
They're in their
respond
own
to their
world.
own.
Yeah, we actually also talked to Health and Human Services at Pinellas County, and they're trying to do something like that with
With their housing developments.
with like a lot of the ones that get contracts through the TD program or through 5310 grant for vehicles, trying to those to maximize the usage of those vehicles. It's an effort, but they're just starting. But we've been down that road before, and it's difficult. There's getting to insurance issues and of who's the driver and who's employee and some of those things.
Well, and it's not like those places either have, they might have a manager, but it's a manager of all things, not a transit expert or, they don't have a lot of staff on site is my point.
You're right.
For that.
And St. Giles One, which was on this route, was a big concern facility, but Neighborly serves them once a week. And their 2 issues were DART continues, which it will, and just the lack of flexibility that they can't take 444, but they still have the Neighborlies going out once a week, just so that requires the residents to plan a little bit more.
But,
That's what we've seen.
but St. Giles is 150 feet from 49th Street.
The problem, you're right. Actually, I think that's St. Giles too, but it's the mid-street crossing they can't do there, which is the concern that we heard from our planning. They can go one direction, but then they have to move back the same direction, so they're not crossing the mid-street crossing of Park Boulevard.
The other comment on the Crystal Lakes, their rec center does either Meals on Wheels or free lunches. So your point about coordination.
Yeah, they come in, on Fridays, they're on campus. They bring the meals and come to them and have their rec center. You might work there. As far as the outreach, we've been talking to a lady that Trish Johnson brought up, she had a letter. This lady actually takes, from what we can tell, and she doesn't provide snail mailing, takes the 19 to get down daily to her volunteer position. She is right at the entrance to Mainland, but doesn't want to cross 19. I understood that, so I went out and I looked at this intersection, and I do ride and use some of our intersections in Pinellas County now. What people worry about when they're crossing is that right turn. You know how you're driving and you're looking left to see who's coming? That isn't the case at this one. There's almost no right turn. There's very little cross traffic, and it's an on-demand stop. You get 52 seconds, 45-second countdown, and we've offered to see if we can work it extended. I'm sure the county could extend it if she feels it's not long enough, but it would actually shorten her commute quite a bit if she could just go out and use that 19 instead of taking the 444, transferring and going in. So we're trying to work with her as well. But she's one of the only 2 daily riders that we see in the mainland. Some of the other areas, like the Housing Authority, zero average daily moorings in the Housing Authority. And we've just been trying to reach out and work with other teams again, remind them that there's some other services like keepers. Manners, one that came in yesterday, even one lady who qualified for DART, but she couldn't make it to 19. She said she couldn't. So that's why she was disappointed with the service for her.
Okay. Any other questions on the 444?
By the way, that was also targeted for elimination in 2008. mayor, who at the time from Pinellas Park was also, I think, chair of the MPO, he came in and they kept it.
On that note, if you guys have a quick and dirty list of the routes that were eliminated in 2008 and the list that were on the bubble, that would be really helpful because it makes these decisions today seem very...
Because we've already looked at it once.
It's not like we haven't known for years that these routes are in jeopardy when our financial picture changes, and clearly our financial picture is changing.
The closest public workshop for the 444 is at the Pinellas Park Library. Another one of the next steps coming out of our conversations with the county and the city, and looking at the there is some of the higher poverty areas, particularly in that Crystal Lake Manor, kind of the Lellman area. We've talked with both the county and the city about trying to work together to develop some kind of new service and potential funding partnership to have something to serve, some community-type service to serve these lower-income populations in the area. So we're going to continue to have those conversations.
And in Lellman, you would know the answer to this question, isn't that the area where there's going to be the new CRA?
Yes.
So,
Depends which part of Lellman.
yeah, but anyway, that's a really important piece of information for us to know, because providing service to an area that's trying to rebuild, now, maybe it's a partnership service.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
If you've got folks in there that are transportation dependent, and this whole CRA is about poverty reduction.
So we just need to look at that. However we do it, that's really important. But again, something that should be stated when you're talking about this. New CRA coming. Because, I mean, it reminds people, not everybody knows all that. You know what I mean? Not everybody's paying as much attention to what's happening in other areas. Again, that's one of those things that even though I'm in Dunedin, I know that there's a CRA going on, because it's not often that we add a new CRA, so it makes big news.
And county staff actually let us know they'll be starting that CRA conversation in October, and we will be at the table. The Crystal Lake Manor is in that CRA.
And we've already started the flight study, so it's rolling.
And what we're talking about is, maybe looking at a connector type service where we could have the primary route be serving the Lellman and Southern area, and then but still have access through the deviations to like mainlands and the places along the current route.
But if we're going to do that, don't freak out when I say this. If we're going to do that, if we're going to Crystal, whatever is included in that CRA, and they're the ones that are speaking out, even though the numbers, and you're meeting with county staff, I mean, should we not address this until we have that answer?
I agree.
Well, I think,
Or you think you're going to have the answer by the time the budget?
Well,
you understand what I'm saying? I mean, should we cause all this drama until that alternative? It may not be the perfect alternative, but it addresses the new CRA. It's more fiscal. It covers some, but not all of the people there. I'm just asking the question hypothetically. I mean,
I think when you add on 62nd, it's not walkable.
Right, and do we go fight for a sidewalk when do you see what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. I'm coming at it from a very high level. You guys have much more. I'm just asking what do you all think? I mean,
I think, thought about, we talked about, to do that, I think there has to be some kind of deadline.
Maybe it's mid-budget that we do it.
This will be eliminated by this day and figure something out before then, or it could just linger forever.
We don't like...
I agree.
We don't like talking about cuts anymore. The best information to make decisions about where we are as an agency. We know that this route is not working.
So I think we should hold on.
If we were talking about budget cuts, we would be talking about changing this route to make it better. So your questions are all good.
Okay, so
it's just about when. When do you want to have that conversation about that?
Okay, so you're you're discontinuing this and there is no alternative. So that's the budget. If we come up with an alternative, then the budget cut gets smaller.
Well, as with
You're at,
the recommended budget, we have included in the budget recommendation that you saw last month, $200,000 of new service.
Which could be this.
There's someone who's got the PowerPoint right now that wants to do this Lawman connector thing, but,
Well, and I'm sure there are 1,000 needs, we're just looking at this route, but when we're talking about these routes, we know there's a CRA, there was a big drive to do that. It would say to you, you've got a lot of partners, maybe it's not transit, but a lot of partners that are trying to, whatever that is, and I don't know what that is, but, so, again, if we think we should play a role, then do we want to hold off on this until we decide what that role is? And give a deadline. You know, work with MPO, work with the county staff, work with whoever's over there at Lowman, you know, and say, okay, you got one budget year. We've all got one budget year to figure it out. Or, I don't know what the right time is.
Where is this going to be done?
No, you are, but what I'm saying is, if we are going to provide a service to this area, if we cut this out, is there a service to this area?
Not at this time, we do not have any
Got it.
alternative plan
Okay.
right now. We would love to. We would love to be able to put together with the city of Pinellas Park that makes sense for this area, that has a budget implication.
Got it.
We use our allocation for new services for this purpose. We can absolutely build a service that makes sense. At least try something different because you know what's out there is not working. But
Okay.
is this the one thing,
Right.
5 different things that we're talking about just in this one service? This is the thing that you want to save.
And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm
I
the chair.
would recommend, at least my recommendation to the board would be not to delay or make any decisions before going through this public input process over the next month. Yes, we should
I'm
meet
sorry,
with the
say
county.
again?
Well,
I didn't understand quite what you said.
recommendation would be not to pull out this route and hold off on making any going and getting more public public input.
You're saying move forward in the process
Yeah.
with the route.
Try to accelerate the discussions about the CRA with the county and with the city of Pinellas Park to talk about better, but keep on the path that this 444 as oddly years ago is
Not working.
not working.
Okay, but are you also saying, and it's July, it's the middle of July, budget is October 1. Are you saying we're going, you say accelerate conversations with them, are you saying we're going to have an answer by then?
I don't know. I
Doubt
doubt
it.
it.
But so you would say go ahead with the cut without knowing what the alternative would be?
Go ahead with the public review process and the collection of comments, the hearings. We can put a stop to it if we need, but to go continue the collection of
Cassandra.
This is an information item. This
I
is
understand.
an information month. You'll have an action month next month. So you have some time to digest. You have some time to light some fires. And we can start to get that information. 10-phase plan that we're trying to get through in 2.5 years. This is the first piece.
How many phases are we going to see this year?
We're going to see this now, and then in the next fiscal year, you
Okay,
will
but
see
so
4.
just this year, we're seeing this.
Yeah.
So I'm now, This is the only one we've had a question on, really, because of the new CR. I mean, I'm concerned, listen, I see it's a poor performing route. I mean.
It's the lowest.
Exactly. So, however, a brand new CRA is coming online, or come online?
No.
If we've
It's
approved,
coming.
it has to go through multiple steps, and we've started the process.
This route only serves Crystal Lake Manor is the only part of this route that's within that
Right.
CRA.
And that's,
The rest is Pinellas Park.
and that's the part I'm concerned about, is just the Crystal Lakes.
Being
How
a part
how
of the
many-
CRA.
Passengers do we have from Crystal Lake?
30. We have 66 on and off the day.
And that is a low income,
Low income. It's a public housing.
That's the saddest part.
okay, and so when you combine that with the fact that you can't walk that roadway, if you Google Earth 62nd, or
Right.
just remember, there's a ditch on one side and
Yeah,
grass on the other.
Yeah.
That's the one part of it that concerns me. The rest of the route, I'm in agreement with. So that's that one piece of it gives me some pause.
Okay,
The
can we do this? Oh, sorry.
I might have is, since that's a center, could we give them a airport bus and let them run service 2 times a day or 3 times a day? I mean, if, rather than us going down, I mean, other different creative ideas.
Yes.
Can we get to our last one, because it may trigger an idea for you.
Okay, go.
Okay?
Every time it's 25 after.
Yeah, I've got a little.
Okay, yeah, me too.
Oh,
I have a 2 o'clock and then.
okay. The East Lake Connector, second lowest performing route. At the time of the community bus plan, it was only a couple months old, so there were no recommendations as far as the bus plan. Not really a big surprise. It's a pretty auto-oriented community. Only 0 to 4% of households that have no vehicle. And there are, I think there's one assisted living center on the assisted living facility on the corner, and that's probably where tiny little percentages. Along Keystone Road, there's actually 0 boarding, like 0 average daily. And then the parks along East Lake have about 5 boardings a day, except for the public shopping center at Ridge Boulevard. Very, very, very low, very, very, very low number of minorities. Looking at the type of trips being made, on the day of the survey, the people surveyed, they were actually going to many places, but because the number of surveys was fairly low, the 2 people that were going to work showed up as the highest type of trip. But we did look at the deviations on the route, and found that the majority of trips are actually to shopping, both at Shops at Boot Ranch and this Ridgemore Plaza, and then there were actually a number of trips to the North Pinellas YMCA as well. Our recommendation is to discontinue the service. I'll talk about alternatives in a moment, but before I do that, this service, cutting this would save us about $422,000 a year, and cost us, or replace 2 of our connector buses, which are for a total of $360,000 a year. Bullet about the East Lake Shuttle ridership I'll get into now. The East Lake Shuttle is a service we offer, very underutilized service that uses our DART service providers, so taxis and wheelchair vans, to pick up people at their door and take them to the Shops at Boot Ranch, where they can either shop or they can transfer to the 67 or the Oldsmore connector. So we may see an increase in that ridership. It's only $2 one way. DART riders continue to receive DART ridership even if the East Lake Connector is discontinued. And then when we surveyed the people on this route, over almost 80% of people said they'd still make the trip and they would either drive, carpool, walk, bike, or take a taxi. In North Pinellas, there are a number of nonprofits that offer specialized transportation for medical and shopping, so that may be an option. And then, like, as I just mentioned, DART for those who still qualify. Or no change. Bob talked with a few people, and you
let you share that with you, let him.
Yeah, we're reaching out to the organizations. In fact, I'll start with a little history of this route, which began in December. In early 2012, late 2011, we started our after services. And we went anywhere they would bring us in, listen to us, and let us get in touch with the people. We had all kinds of surveys, both paper, online, social media, the majority of which came from the East Lake area. They want the service, but they're not using it. And we listened to them, the surveys, we built these routes around when were they going to travel, where did they want to go, what days did they want it to operate. So that was the genesis of this route. We just hadn't had the ridership. So I've gone back to most of the groups that helped us, Don Ewing, CN helping us get the word out. I contacted the Citizens Alliance Progress. They were more concerned about making sure that they still had the night tanning dart service, which they do. Center up there, the YMCA as well. And the luxury on this one, when we start going out, there are changes. If this goes away, we put people on every run of the system with identifiers, PSD, and we talk to them, hey, this route will go away, but you'll have East Lake Shuttle. We'll be giving them what you have as far as a handout, telling them this is how it works. You can still get down to shops at your home. These are your options. So this one is it has that as far as a fallback, but it just hasn't been getting the ridership, and it had the same went out as all the others, which are getting pretty good ridership. It's just not being used as much.
And this goes out, I'm trying to find
I
that.
think this route is leading the pack in letter writing campaign.
Yeah.
We've got the most number of letters from East Lakers.
Well,
Gotta write letters.
it's the demographics. You've probably got a group of people that are more involved in, on a whole.
Yeah, they certainly will. I'm giving
Yeah.
putting it together.
And it's ironic because it's a very suburban area that, for the majority where it's going through, right? Not a lot of commercial, except at its main point.
Very, very low.
And in some areas, it's cultural, Keystone, that area, space. So you have to look at that and say you're not going to get, and the neighborhoods are going. The only kind of service that might work in that area would be a connector, because nobody's walking out of their neighborhood to the main road.
For many of us, it's a half mile more just from their closest house to Mall Road.
So let me ask you, having said all of that, how would you ever provide that area with transit if you were going to do it? This is the way you do it, because of...
For that market.
Right.
Serving that market.
It is the right.
It just isn't being used. That's the only question.
How many people are actually using it?
Six a day, isn't it?
What did you say the numbers using it?
I'm sorry, I was asking another
That's
question.
okay.
On the East Lake,
Yeah, what's the ridership?
26
Month?
a day.
A day?
26.
26 trips.
26 trips.
So 13 people a day?
Yeah, the
YMCA.
We have one, yeah, the YMCA is a big destination, yes, sometimes, we're going there on a pretty regular basis.
YMCA.
Yeah. They're gonna help us spread the word, and they said they've got some people coming regularly, because that was one of the places we went, the initial outreach, and then, as far as publicizing it, once we got it up and running.
Alternative for their transit? But
East Lake Shuttle.
East Lake Shuttle.
So that will only take them from their home, to and from the home, to a transfer point at shops.
Got it. But
But we can adjust that to serve,
YMCA and Publix.
yeah, I mean, that's our rule on that, which we could adjust, and I think, you might want to explain how this is an idea for maybe Loveland.
right, so can you talk, yeah.
It is, but it's it's an experiment, and it could be quite costly depending on how you use it. So, shuttle, the way anybody can use it. You do not have to be DART qualified. Call up the same number for the DART service provider, and you say, I want to take the East Lake Shuttle. They come and then to Boot Ranch, and you can go from Boot Ranch to a residence in that zone. So those are our rules that we put on that service in order to make sure that people have access to the main system.
Who runs East Lake Shuttle?
It's run by our DART service provider, so it's
Got
part
it.
of our contract.
Got it,
with
okay,
them.
got it.
Cab
So
takes
you get a
to the
cab.
shuttle.
Okay.
So it's a cab service.
Mhm.
You
Subsidized
could use
FTC.
that for the understanding that you would probably get a lot more than what you're getting for the East Lake Shuttle, and we would end up paying for that, but we could monitor it and see how it goes. But that leaves them with something to get back and forth. You could say, well, we will give you service to the system. So that is from a residence to the Pinellas Park Transit Center. I mean,
That means adding a shuttle in that area.
that's just residents to our a main place to get out.
But it means adding a
Once-
shuttle, a
Once
vehicle.
you start, yeah, it means, no, you're not adding a vehicle, you're putting it part of your contract for the DART service provider, so it would be a
We
cab.
Got it,
Or you
okay.
can call and
Okay.
get a cab.
You call this number, you have to call the day before 5 o'clock, reserve your ride. You could be sharing with other people.
Got
I mean, there are some restrictions, because once we, oh, well, now you can go to, this, you can go to that place, and then we might as well be doing it connected.
Right.
But this is for 13 people.
No, we switched from East Lake to Talking
That-
Whale. She was saying we could do the
Okay.
same, like the East Lake Shuttle, we could do a,
34.
Right, so you say
Same
it is
kind of
not-
thing for
you say
Lealman.
you want to provide, it is not walkable to get to the main system, get them to the main system. So in this case, it would be Shops at Park Place. That would be the same concept. But again, once you start adding different places to go from the residents, it's the service for them.
I just, again, I almost wonder, going back to the Lealman thing, if we shouldn't sit down with the appropriate people, county, the CRA, whoever the right people are, MPO, I don't know, and looking at it holistically, the CRA area, and determining what is it that it does need. And even if that in a certain amount of time it needs this kind of service, doesn't mean we have to provide it today, okay? But at least understand what that is before we remove the service that exists. And then make the plan, and maybe it is getting rid of 444 altogether, because maybe the plan for transit to the CRA is 5 years. We're not going to carry something for 5 years. Or maybe it is this other alternative track.
Well, they had started, that probably they'll have a CRA in a year.
I just, you understand what I'm saying? I'm concerned about not knowing what does that mean in making this decision. Maybe I'm being too detailed about it. I don't know. I mean, hang on. I mean, Ken, this is your deal. I mean, this is Pinellas County has given the CRA. I mean, what would you think? That's why.
Curve it, because the CRA is going to take several months. And I think it would fit perfectly in, transport, all the anti-poverty efforts that are part of it.
Right.
It's just, we're ahead of where that CRA is.
And how do you feel about altering the service that's there until we know what we're going to do, or what the groups are going to do?
Like I said, I'm concerned. How many folks did we say were there? 30?
30, yeah.
With 30 folks, I mean, for the others, even Route 30, we're giving them I'm assuming there's safe sidewalks to get them to 38th or 22nd. It's a half mile. You can't say that with Crystal Lakes, and even though it's an over 55, folks are working or trying to get to Walmart or wherever. I'm not comfortable telling them to walk on 62nd where there's a ditch on one side and, it's a 2-lane road, so. If there was a way to just preserve that peaceful service without breaking the bank, that's what I would. I don't see a clear alternative to those folks.
To me, and we'll have to look at it. I would suggest looking at the idea of East Lake shuttle kind of thing. Stop over in, as we
Until-
plan for the, county catches up to us and whoever else.
How fast could we do the East Lake shuttle?
Well, and I would say this, is that
We
if
do
we
that.
weren't looking for budget savings, the planning department would be looking at this route and how to make it better. So that's step one. We need to do something anyway. Short term, if you want to keep service just in that one little area, I would recommend we look at a shuttle type service where it is, $2 to get them from Crystal Lake Manor to our
Main.
transit hub in that area.
Which is
Would be
19.
shop that,
Mhm.
so that would be a very short-term solution. If we want to find the right solution for the service, we need to work with the city, work with the county. How do we create a partnership connector that makes
It does not include 444.
it's a redesign?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a redesign.
But how fast, that can be done pretty quickly, can't it? Once we
Well, we
say,
can do our work pretty quickly,
Yeah.
but who's going to pay the other portion of it? Who's going to be our partners? And I think that's probably the part that is the who is going to step up and say, PS with you to make this a successful service, much like the Jolly Trolleys in the north, the city has stepped up and have the service. So the county participates in that, so everybody, but that partnership piece takes a while.
Another option B would be to start working with the local coordinating board that Patty Johnson represents BSBA on. She's the chair. They allocate money to or buying of center utility vehicles. Right? That they pay for. They could maybe pay for Crystal Manor
To have its
get
own van or
to
something.
get its own van.
we used to sell our vans, our old things. We used to sell
We
it.
do. The only problem with we need a commercial driver's license to drive it, so it's a little too big.
Yeah.
But the LCV, we sign up on those all the time, but they provide state dollars to get vehicles.
So it's something that could happen pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We can't make a decision right here, but you all hear, we understand, I can speak for myself, I think I'm speaking for everybody, we all understand it's a non-performing route, and it needs to go
As it exists today.
as it exists today. The concerns that have been expressed is the low-income housing, which is the highest user, so that's number one. Number two, the other concern is there's a CRA being formed, and what does that need that might include this low income? And what is the best, and I would say number three, what is the best way of dealing with this route? Is it getting rid of it and waiting till everybody catches up? Is it providing an for the one area? Or is it, let's postpone it altogether till next year until we understand the scope of the needs and kind of pull the Band-Aid off together with the change and whatever. You understand what I'm saying? I think we need to decide that. I'm not sure that any of us really know what the best thing to do is.
It's a good thing we brought this as an information item so that we could discuss it.
Well,
we'll
and
have some time to discuss it further. And I think you have some people in public, if you have to listen, if they're still here, if they'd like to make some comments, if you have some time.
Yeah, so going back to the East Lake, saying they still have the East Lake shuttle. Now, again, that's the folks we've heard from the most. Okay, we're in general for the moment moving forward with the East Lake connector.
Yes. Yeah.
The only suggestion that I had, but it's really doesn't affect this area, I don't think, when we thought about alternatives. It doesn't address this road or what the users are using, but the one thing I have to talk about is the Safety Harbor trolley thing, which we know doesn't perform very well, and I know it's not on your list, but I did think about the fact of what makes trolley service perform well is multiple locations and multiple communities. That's one. And I wondered if we wouldn't want to use service and include Oldsmar and maybe some small part of Eastlake. What are you doing? Are you hiding?
No, I'm
Whispering, he's whispering.
That's actually part of our phase 3.
Okay.
To look at,
Okay.
As you said, phase 3, yes,
Safety Harbor,
66.
Countryside, Oldsmar.
To
that
try to,
kind of-
yeah, make it
Yeah.
better performing, it would be nice if you could say it doesn't affect these, it'd be nice if you could do that at the same time.
We have so many ideas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good, we're all on the same page, that's good. Okay, but we can't do that at the same time, so, from a financial perspective.
Well, most of this Eastlake Road is not really that close to Safety.
But, I know, but it's showing that whole area that we are thinking of you from a transportation, and that's, I think, is especially for an area that has so little. So I don't know, you might want to reevaluate that.
Really nice to be adding service rather than taking the service
Right.
away. We would still make some of these changes.
Yep. Okay, so, that was the final thing. We'll wait for more information on 444. When is this coming to the board?
Next month. It's going to come in your committee in a month.
So next month we'll again,
Yes, it'll be.
and then it'll go to the board for action.
There's a public, we're having a number of public workshops, including one here at PSTA the night before your August meeting at the end of the track meeting. And then this will be an action item at your committee meeting in August. You'll get the fun excitement of then starting to have an info item to start talking about the fare increase at that meeting also, and top it off with a chaser because we're going to be talking about alcohol on the buses. And then at that
Are you
That
kidding?
was so bad.
Design ads and fares all
We'll
at the
have
same
alcohol
meeting?
there.
Are
Get
you-
through it.
And then
So not just ads, it's the real thing.
Yeah, the real
then
deal.
there'll be
We're really busy.
public hearing.
Okay.
Then the final hearing will be at the PSA board meeting.
Make sure you email the whole board on the events in case anybody wants to attend, to sit in the back of the room and kind of listen.
I think this is this is an information item on the board agenda this month.
Oh, it is?
So, yes, I mean, this is heavy stuff, and we're not springing anything on you. You know, at each phase, we're bringing it to you as an information, so you have some time to think about it, going out to the public again, before we take any
Okay,
action.
I will not be on PSTA meeting on the same day as one of our budget workshops, and I couldn't rearrange it. So, you on notes then? You were some, yeah.
I'm gonna miss it too, so somebody's gotta speak.
Yeah, because I think it's important to,
July?
I think what will be important, especially in this highly talked about issue, that before you get into board questions, that it gets expressed what was hashed out here, what our concerns, if we made conclusions, what those were, to try to avoid, because I mean, look how long just we took. Imagine the entire board.
Toughest phase. I'm sorry we gave it to you at the beginning, but, you know, of the 10.
Yeah.
So you've got, this is group one, and you've got, how many in total?
10.
So are you expecting cost savings from each group, not from each one? From any of the sub, are we expecting cost savings?
There could be, but we're just looking, these in particular as part of the budget discussion.
So you haven't in from any of these subsequent changes into
No.
Debbie's projections?
Most of those are looking at, again, the recommendations from the bus plan. That's about looking at realigning different services.
But I do see some reductions and realignments.
And remember that also in the community bus plan talked about increasing frequency on some of our core routes. And so in phase 3, we're going to save some money, but let's savings in the phase, but not in the system.
So this is the only real savings we're gonna see from these 10 groups? Okay.
And like I said earlier, if Brad gave us $1 million to put new service on the system, where would we put it? We would probably put it on those core routes. So, you know, when you
Okay.
come up with savings and you're not gonna put it back into the budget, the entire budget, you know, if you're gonna put it back into the system, there's some other ways to really use it too.
Right.
Moving towards,
The
yeah.
higher end of the path forward.
Right. Okay, I think there's somebody that might want to speak. Did you want to speak to this
If it's still
issue? Anybody want to speak to this issue?
Well, what I wanted to speak about was the, Jolly Trolley routes and
Please state your name
Put up
and
the,
because I didn't know if it was-
microphone.
My name's Lisa Lanza, and I live in Clearwater, Florida, 043 San Marino Way South. And, a couple of questions were about the money from the Tourist Development Council, and I know some of you feel that, they want to spend 60% marketing, and, a lot of citizens feel that some of them said maybe to, subsidize the trolley, because that is for tourists, and so they don't have to rent cars, they have office, because of the situation we have during, special times of the year. This point, it's almost 12 months of the year. It's terrible getting to Clearwater Beach. And, so we don't know if that money can be used for subsidizing trolley, and if that's, who makes that decision?
we have talked to the Tourist Development Council.
Because we've talked about that same
yes.
idea. We have.
And right now, they could not subsidize the operations, but with the change in the advertising policy, which is in front of next month, they could start advertising with us. And so that's one way that we could have their support.
Financially.
Okay, and then the other thing is, we're trying to, bring traffic to downtown Clearwater and, link it up with Dunedin, and, I think his last name is Brady.
Greg.
Greg Brady's very active. And he feels that if we link Clearwater and Dunedin, if Clearwater could support Dunedin, which right now is really not, because there's not all that much happening in downtown Clearwater, at some point, it could be a great route to.
It could, and I will tell you, I mean, not to get off topic here, but, I mean, I will tell you that even with the Jolly Trolley, the people in Clearwater, I don't know if you're on that downtown Clearwater board or whatever.
No,
Okay.
it's mostly business people.
Okay. They have actually cut what they'll even fund on the Jolly Trolley. So, and we've just sort of, I mean, I'll just be honest, it doesn't send a good partnership message.
Right.
When the rest of us are putting in $30-some thousand a year, and they've cut from their 16 to the 9.
Right, thank you for that information. The other thing is, traffic from Clearwater Beach to downtown, like say you're a tourist out on the beach and you want to go to the Capitol Theater or you want to go downtown for dinner. At this point, the way it's set up, yes, there's a PSTA trolley, and I don't really understand, that trolley is mainly to go up and down the beach. But we need a trolley that goes directly at 9 o'clock. From the beach to downtown Clearwater, the way it is set up right now,
Gotta go to Island Estates.
Go to Publix and sit at Island Estates and change, and that just makes no sense to even open, it makes no sense whatsoever. And the answer I got from the Jolly Trolley people is that the people on Island, the residents, is like that. Well, if we
That's
want.
not the reason I tried to get that stopped too when it was first designed. I wanted a direct line, and you would have to have the people in Clearwater Beach are circulating, the trolleys, and then you have the trolleys that are going up off the path north.
North on Clearwater Beach,
No,
Oh.
coming up
Across the
Memorial
Causeway.
and going
Downtown.
to downtown north. That's a separate group of trolleys.
Well, we just need a trolley at this point that goes from Clearwater Beach to downtown, like on a regular
Right.
basis, where you can hop on it. You know, some of us even have places on Clearwater Beach, and there's a lot of Clearwater, believe it
Yeah.
or not, who have.
We need
There needs to
We
be a
need a
straight
good
shot, and we'll.
We need a good step. We also also needed to go back and forth so you can hop on, go to the Capitol Theater, go have some, go back down to Clearwater Beach again.
Right.
And it's not just for tourists, even a lot of residents have places on Clearwater Beach where they go, even if they just go down to rent a hotel for the weekend, and they
Right.
don't own a place on Clearwater Beach, but they want to be able to go without having to go to Island Estates, sit there, change train, it just makes no sense.
Well, work on that downtown folks with their contribution too.
Well, we're trying to figure out
Right.
what's going on. If they want town, why are they, what do they, it doesn't make sense. Something just doesn't make sense.
Well, we'll work on that. Thank you
Okay,
very
thank
much. Is there anybody else that wanted to speak to this, to these service changes?
Quickly, my name is Andy McLeese. I work for Think Direct Marketing Group, and we're in the Baltimore Palms community. And Route 58 is our area, and it will also service Matrix Medical once they move in. Approximately 20 to 25 employees currently use the bus. So if that route is discontinued, of those individuals, I don't know how many employees would find alternate transportation. I don't know how many of those employees we would lose, 15 to 20 people, maybe, because they can't find an alternate way to get to work, bus, car ride, however. So it affects us in a couple different ways. We would lose some employees that we've trained, that we have on our sales floor. It would affect, if we didn't have that bus coming right in front of Baltimore Palms, it would enable us to use route as a recruiting tool, so we lose that pocket of people that we need to recruit. And that's big. And then going forward, if you look at it, we would obviously hate to see those individuals lose their jobs. Find a way to get to work. If the pay scale for those individuals, it's a sales environment, call center environment. It's just a small bonus structure. So these aren't individuals that can go out and pay for alternate transportation. Obviously, the bus is a great way for them to get there. It's a service. It's a good service. It helps them get to their job. And these are individuals that don't have college degrees and are individuals that have high skill levels. So there's a huge purpose. It's a great thing. It's a great tool for us. We hate to lose it. It does impact us. I know that there's a cost savings, obviously, that you're looking at. And I know that's big. But our company, it will affect all of Baltimore Palms and everybody along that. And as we all know, we live here. You're walking from US 19 some area in the afternoon. It's either 92 degrees or there's a thunderstorm with lightning. I certainly would want to be in that position. So hopefully we can find a way to save that route, find a way to subsidize it somehow, to allocate some money or something, or find out what we need to do. What do we need to do to save it? I'd love to hear some of those ideas. That would be great.
Commissioner Lynch.
Thank you for coming today. I didn't know when we came up in the that we were going to be talking about this.
Yep.
But the name of the other company is
Matrix Medical. Yep.
And how close is the bus stop to Think Direct now?
It is right across the street from Baltimore Palms. So it's right on the other side of the Nigeria Road. So it's directly across.
There-
Is there?
Yeah, it's pretty much right in front.
Right in front.
Yeah.
So your employees, are they coming from a certain area, or are they spread out along the route?
Our building, oh boy, our
Yeah.
director of sales, yeah,
You don't have
they're
that.
throughout St. Pete, and then we have the
Okay.
workforce to take the bus up,
And you said about 30 employees?
about 30.
Okay.
Alternative again? What was the alternative?
To take a north, to transfer to the 59 on Ulmerton.
I mean, how far away was that? Half a mile?
walk from the nearest north side. Because that was Bob's 2,500 and 3,000.
I mean, that's not terrible.
But they're taking Almerton instead of Bryant Dairy. The route is far out. But
Multiple transfers.
You're saying the stop is
I mean,
a half-mile walk, but the route is, if you look at the map,
Yeah.
quite a ways away.
The service 58 to right in front of their business, that, and as he said, majority of riders are riding enough and then they're transferring to get over there east. They're going north-south on a high-frequent route already, so they're already riding. So what Heather basically described was they would still ride that bus like they're doing today. They They would just have to walk that last bit to the front door of Think Direct from Starkey or Belcher. An option that we came up with the gentleman that came to the track meeting was to maybe look at T-Barda or another way to have a van, or have Think Direct and from the Starkey bus stop, where all, then, you know, then they can get there whenever. Because that runs all
Because
day.
it's only one shift, it's only the beginning of, because it's 3 o'clock or something. Is this the place you were talking about earlier?
One of the shifts.
The last bus is at 6:15 in the afternoon. We start at 7 in the morning, and we go till midnight. So, I would love to see an increase in number of
Right.
buses. I'm asking about the opposite. I'd love to see more. The majority of our people that work in the afternoon, that's when we take calls from the East Coast and the West Coast.
Right.
Probably from 3 to 7 in the afternoon is our busiest time.
Yeah.
Get off between 7:30 and 8:30, and that's,
Right.
there's, but that would be awesome if we could find a way to get.
We will, we will with your staff and, maybe get some additional data and.
That'd be great. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, and then, any other public? I don't think there's any other public feedback. Future meeting subjects? Brad?
Are listed there. Like I
TDP?
said, the fair adjustment will be next up.
Right. Planning open house, August. When is that? What's the date on that? Do we have a date yet?
August 19th? You mean the
No, the municipal planning open house.
22nd?
Oh, that's coming up.
Yeah, it's next.
Okay. I'm sure it's in my calendar, but I don't remember seeing it. What time is it?
It's the time
2
of
to 4.
the NPO's their technical committee,
Got
but
it.
NPO canceled their meeting, so they're gonna hopefully
Okay.
have it on their calendar to come here instead.
The only other subject coming up that I did want to bring up real quick, and I know we've gone way over, and we don't have to get into conversation here. This is simply a question. At some point, are we interested in talking about the 5 cities that do not participate?
That's on our executive committee agenda
It is. Okay.
table, so just have, we've already had it.
And I probably missed that.
I think each time it comes up, we put it to rest, and then it's somehow coming back again.
Okay, because I don't
You
feel like it
require
gets,
a vote.
I don't
You
feel like it gets.
Okay, well,
And maybe I missed it, because I know I missed a couple of meetings.
Our legal counsel says it requires a vote by each of the citizens in that city to do it.
Unless, well, again, I didn't want to dialogue.
Florida legislature
I-
to change.
I need, right, I don't know, I need dialogue, that's all. And maybe I missed the dialogue. Maybe it's at the executive committee. I just feel like, I gotta know what the heck.
I just thought that the lay of the land with each of those 5 referendum to approve it.
Yeah.
That was
Unless the
a
legislature,
kind of a steep
unless the legislature changes our,
Well, the
Finding-
legislature is probably going to be changing based on the Supreme Court decision, so maybe in the future, there won't be so much opposition from our members.
I don't know, I just kind of,
well.
I know we're being live streamed.
okay.
You're
That
gonna
was my
and you're gonna go for it.
Today, I'm just saying, is it,
When the timing is right.
let's have a conversation at some point about it. Thank you. Okay, any other business?
More than enough.
Seeing or hearing none, we are,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank
Great
you, and
meeting.
thank you guys for staying an hour later.
Good stuff.
Please read your report.